All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jonathan St. James, along with The Truth is Still Straight. And as you see on the screens, if you're watching on YouTube, it is Jim and Donnie St. James.
What's up? How you doing, everyone?
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
That's my intro. I do it every time.
Yeah. All right. So before we get this show started here, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. First off, I wanted to talk about, of course, we know since this last time we've been here discussing things, DMX passed away. Very unfortunate. I believe it was a drug overdose. I didn't
Yeah, I think so too.
100% verify that, but just people all over the place with allegations. So, and then every day until he passed away, they had him as dead. So that was very unfortunate. The weird thing is everybody was DMX friend all of a sudden, so if someone took a picture with him, they were like, oh, DMX, we had good times together. I'm like, oh, okay, dude, it's one picture. It's one photo. Or lady, it's one photo. I doubt DMX was eating dinner in your living room last week. But you got folks that just, everybody wants to get in on the clout. I don't get it, but it is what it is. All right. So yeah, that was very sad. I was a DMX fan, of course. Some of the things that I like is Stop Being Greedy. I love that song. And I like Where My Dog's At. But is that the name of the song? Or is it Get At Me Dog? What's the name of that song?
I think it's Get At Me, Dog.
Okay, I can't remember. Anyway, it's so long ago. And of course, I think that was the CD that had the double CD with Return of Jack the Ripper. I think that was on that CD.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, very unfortunate of DMX passing away. All right, let me see what else is going on. There's nothing else really worth talking about. I can't think of anything offhand. Derek Jackson seems to be real quiet. The only person that seems to be getting any traction these. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Oh yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to talk about this whole Kevin Samuels slash versus um, Tommy Sotomayor. So apparently, um, Tommy Sotomayor is upset because Kevin Samuels is becoming very successful, and he feels like that Kevin Samuels is ripping him off. Taking his style and creating it and becoming successful. So the weird thing about it is, I'm like, even if that's true, everybody borrows something from someone a lot of times when they're successful. You have Nicki Minaj took a lot of things that Little Kim did. This just happens in the entertainment industry. So if he took things from Tommy Sotomayor, so what? He just made a better mousetrap. That's all it is. To me, the significant difference in Tommy Sotomayor and Kevin Samuels is that Kevin Samuels, his platform is a lot more elegant. He dresses up. He speaks very calmly. Tommy Sotomayor uses a lot of profanity, and he becomes very irate with people that disagree with him. And not even sometimes he'll have a discussion with people, but a lot of times he's become very irate. And to me, that's a big difference in terms of approach. He Kevin can get a little indignant with people too, but it usually escalates to that point. So, have you heard anything about that, Jim, at all? Have you ever heard about this discussion?
About that online. I have. To be honest with you, I never listened to Tommy Sotomayor before.
Your level is low. Your microphone level.
Microphone level.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, I have thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think because I've seen a lot of situations like this, even if I didn't know about the Tommy Sotomayor thing specifically. I really think something like this, I think the nature of the game, I don't think the point is to make something that's completely 100% fresh, because doing that is going to be difficult with the number of things that have come out, especially with like content creation. Everyone's on it now, right? I think it's really about having like the strength of personality to pull in those extra viewers. I feel like if the Sotomayor dude is having issues, it should really be with himself as opposed to someone else. I mean, Kevin Samuels isn't going to stop him from getting views. Like in the same way, um, there's countless reality shows, but each of them still gets views, even though they're the same concept. It's not like there's a finite number of people that they can only one of them can reach or anything like that. I think that's a silly argument to have, honestly.
Right. Like top rated is top rated. Yeah. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you'll definitely get better results or as good results um, as anyone else. So if Tommy Sotomayor is doing what he's supposed to do and he's doing a great job, he wouldn't have to worry about, like you said, people not watching him. You know, there's enough room in the universe for everyone. Oh, before I forget, Jim, hopefully your sound is a little better. Let's do a mic check over there.
All right, can you hear me?
Okay, that's a little better.
Okay. I never listened to Tommy Sotomayor before. But I agree with Donnie, you can't, everybody tries to reinvent the wheel, do, certain things differently. I think Kevin Samuels had a better understanding of the target audience that he wanted and the type of platform that he wanted to portray on his YouTube broadcast presentations, everything, and he presented it better. I don't know what's to deal with Tommy Sotomayor. I think these issues that Kevin Samuels talked about, and him and Tom Sotomayor himself, are common issues among men. And Kevin Samuels has, a better almost understand, but he has evolved himself into a better person who could effectively communicate with his target audience online and on YouTube and things like that, and that he can portray his message a lot better and have women call in and men call in looking for asking about problems and solutions and relationship advice. They come to him because he gives a better temperance compared to Tommy Sotomayor for advice. And you can be upset about it, you can be a little hurt, but I think lashing out online against that he's copying him is kind of disingenuous at best on what your problem is. The gripe is probably with himself mostly, because he did his platform any old way, and he did it mostly upon content instead of presenting the content in a way that people may like or respond to.
Oh yeah, and I wanted to bring something else up that I thought was pretty funny. So you remember the whole thing with Kendra G and Kevin Samuels, that whole interaction?
Oh my Lord, please, yes.
So remember there was like she made a response to him after she left off his show. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing. They were clowning on her because apparently when he did the verses for with Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Or the Ronald Isley DM.
Yeah. She was in the DM just hollering on him like, hey, big head.
Hey, big head. Pathetic.
Yeah. So, they've been clowning her about that because they're like, first of all, have you seen the woman that he's with? Yes. I don't think so. Yeah. So, Kendra G is an interesting character, and it's funny for her to be a radio personality. And I think her YouTube channel has like a little over 1,500 followers. So I thought that was interesting that she's a online, I'm not an online, an on-air personality and doesn't have that many followers. So I thought that was interesting. So
yeah. She also have a singles chat or something on her Instagram.
Yeah.
Every Friday or something like that. And somebody said that she should go on that herself.
Right. Hook herself up. As Kevin Wright will say, hook herself up. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting go back and forth. It's, you know, the whole Kevin Samuels dynamic is very interesting, and how women go on there, and they always try to validate themselves. I just find it interesting how that happens. Like, it's just always some sort of validation that's going on. Like, oh, hi, Kevin. Let me tell you how great my life is. Let me tell you how wonderful my life is. Oh, this is what's going on. I'm this, I'm that. And then they're just waiting for Kevin to kind of, oh, that's great. That's great. But doesn't work all the time.
Well, he's not interested in that.
No.
He's interested on why you're calling, and
right. And first of all, why are you calling? I don't get, if you're in a great situation, why are you calling a place where people call for advice to tell your story? This is, I have questions. This is, I have an issue that I want to talk about that hopefully I can resolve and work on. Not let me tell you how wonderful my life is. Yeah.
They just want to prove him wrong. And when they're trying to prove him wrong, they end up not understanding the message originally, B, having to be constantly be corrected that they don't understand the message, C, they always mix up what he says. It's like it's like what he says and what they process is two different things.
Right.
And he's very good at, telling him, where that disconnect is, because obviously he has had a lot of people misinterpret, or just hearing the message that he said correctly, and everybody's just quick to prove him wrong about certain topics, certain things that he says. And unfortunately, he hasn't really been tripped up at, maybe once in a blue moon. Somebody might have a point, but I mean, if it don't really apply to you, why are you calling? You're taking time away from a person who might need help.
Yeah. What I think the reason why he wins so many arguments or discussions is because they're in layers or tiers. So he'll say things, and then if you answer that, he'll have a next question to have, or next challenge to you that he figures you will most likely not have. And then if you have that, then he has like a level after that. So it's like when you think, oh, I got him, I'm going to answer this one, but he'll be like, okay, so what about this? So like, for example, he'll say, yeah, that's why you got no man. And she'd be like, wait a minute. I have a man. And they're like, but are you married? And then she says, yes, I am married. And then he'll say, is he a high value man? And then that's usually like, if they get past those two, the third one is they're done, because they usually don't have that high value. That high value man is so difficult. There's almost hardly any men that are like that. So when he gets to that level, it's usually game over. Like, you can get past the first two guards, but when you get to the last guard, it's a wrap. So he kind of understands that people may have the first two challenges, but he'll know at the end that they can't get past that one. That's like a card trick that I do. And it's, you have to write a card number down. So usually I like to write the 7 of hearts, because 7 is a number everybody identifies with, lucky 7, stuff like that. And then hearts is, for some reason, is popular. So
now on his show, 7 don't count. Now on his show.
Right. But so the key is making any combination till you can get somebody to choose 7. So if they choose it, if the combination gets a 7 right away, then you stop there. But if the first combination that you get, you got to kind of keep going until the combination fits 7, which it could be, subtract, add, or directly be that number. So that's usually what I do. It works great with kids because kids, they're not trying to be skeptical of what you're doing. But that's a trick that I learned. I think I learned that in elementary school, and it works. I've never had it not work. But that's the way he does. It's kind of like chess.
Right.
So you kind of put this out there, see how somebody responds to that. And you're like, well, by the time they get to this last thing, it'll be checkmate and the game will be over.
It's a good ploy. It is.
Yeah. All right. So enough of that. I want to get into the topic for today. So today's topic is going to be Mission Impossible, like the TV show and movies. And the point of topic or point of reference for that discussion is sabotaging your relationship opportunities. And that's something that I think is very powerful because most people who have trouble in relationships, they have mission impossible issues, which is they're sabotaging their chances before it even begins. And there's a lot of reasons why. And one of the issues that I wanted to talk about is, first and foremost, I don't know if this is going to be the most important one, and that's going to be the expectations. So, of course, expectation is a big thing because expectation, a lot of times you don't even get through the door unless you get past these initial expectations. So I find a lot of times the expectations, especially now, men have expectations too. Let's not get that twisted. So I'll go really talk about the women's expectations because I find that this happens a lot. So some of the expectations you have, it will be first and foremost the way they look. So the appearance is an important part of an expectation in relationships. So they want them attractive. They want them to, depends on the age too. Car, because sometimes car can come before money. Sometimes people forget you may want someone to drive and have money to take you out to eat because just smelling exhaust fumes all day because they can't take you out anywhere, but they can drive you. That doesn't help the matter either. So you'll have a situation like looks, right? Looks, a car, then maybe money would somewhere after that, but you kind of have to talk about the money. Then you have to talk about definitely often, but not always, body type, muscular, stuff like that. A big penis, right? Big penis.
Living situation as well.
Let's see what else we got in there. What else we got? You got any, Jim?
Living situation.
What does that mean?
So they have their own apartment, they don't live with their parents, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, hopefully they have that. But living situations, along with big penis is good in bed, right? Because you can have a big penis and not be good in bed.
Shallow.
What else we have here? Oh, nice clothes, right? Nice clothes and shoes. Because men women look at their shoes a lot. So nice clothes and shoes.
Oh, they still do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, what else do we have? Okay, we have looks, car, money, body, big penis, living situations, good penis, nice clothes, shoes. Let's just say good sex, not good penis. Well, I guess that's good, right? Good and big is not necessarily the same thing.
True.
Yeah, because I remember when the whole Jay-Z and Nas drama was going on. There was a woman talking about that Jay-Z was like, he was packing, but there wasn't a lot going on beyond the packing. So I guess that anything else I'm missing? Sometimes a sub-level is education, job or career. I'm trying to think height, definitely height.
There's definitely a height.
You got height there. Color, race, color. Because that's important too. Because some people only will deal with black, some will only deal with white.
Yeah.
So that's another one. Okay. So why did I point those all out? Well, of course, when you're talking about expectations, you want one person to have all of the. Let's not forget. Oh, I forgot. Loyal, right? No cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good communicator, even though they don't want them to talk. No kids most of the times.
Yes, no kids, yes.
and accept them as they are. That's the big one.
Mm-hmm.
Accepting as they are. Now, here's the thing. Who is all of these things? That's what I want to say. So already we're starting off behind men. Men are starting behind because you have looks, car, money, body, big penis, living situations, good penis, nice clothes, shoes, education, good job, career, height, race, color, loyal, good communicator, no kids, and accepting you for as you are. How many guys can do that? And then once you start taking big penis, that cancels a lot of people. Good penis cancels a lot of people. Money, a lot of people. Body, a lot of people. Car, in New York, a lot of people. In living situations, well, I'll skip over that because you may have enough men out there. Education, definitely. Height, certainly. No kids. So
Ooh.
so you have so allegedly, I think they say it's like 1 out of 2 men have kids, something like that. Something like that. So they say half of a little bit more than half or something like that. I can't remember the exact number, but they said there's a big deal of men that don't have kids. But now you come to all of these things here. Now it becomes complicated because now you have to match some of these qualities. And I know for a fact that some of the biggest qualities that women do look for is the sex. Like that's a big thing in relationships. Like you meet somebody and they're very good at sex and they got that big penis. There's a lot of investing that goes on in those kind of guys, but also they got to have some of these other things too. Definitely the look. Oh, and they want them to be confident too. I forgot that. Confident. Yeah. Can't have no beta guys, is what they say. No beta males. So they want alpha types that have to have as much as these qualities. Of course, we know it's not unreasonable that women will ignore some of the qualities and go with that guy. But usually some of these that are hard to get in a typical guy is what women choose. So when this happens and you have these all these type of qualifications, how do you meet somebody? And that's the problem right there, because you have all these qualifications. So you have qualifications, but now you have no way to meet someone. And that's the problem. So before we even go to meeting people, let's go through the qualifications. Have you heard these things before, Jim? Are these things that you definitely have heard women say that they have to have?
Yes. Not all in the same, sentence or something like that. But yes, I've heard variations, different combinations of their expectations of what they want in a man. And majority of the time, to be honest with you, they don't end up with the guy like that. When they start dating, they don't end up with a guy like that.
Right. Or they'll end up with a guy that has some of those things that are not really positive, but pleasureful, like a
Yes.
good in bed and the big penis is great. But if he doesn't have anything else, like what's the point? What's the point of you just getting good? And some of the biggest manipulations that I've seen in relationships are women who meet men that have big penises and are good in bed.
Yes.
I know for a fact. I have a friend in particular who was dating a guy that was packing like Green Bay. Then he was good in bed. And how do I know he was good in bed? Not that I was sleeping with him, but here's how I found out, because according to her, this man had 8 other women that he was dealing with, and each woman was paying a bill. So he had one woman paying his car note, his van note, car insurance, van insurance, electricity in the house, the phone in the house. What else is there? And I can't think of anything else. And then giving him spending money on top of that. And then how did they rectify the situation? Well, a couple of them kind of left when they found out. And then the others, they stayed with him and just kept dealing with him because they didn't care. They were getting that good sex and that big penis. Because, you know, I don't know how that feels, but it must be great if you're willing to pay someone's bills like that. So that's how I know that, you know, a lot of times when it's those type of things that they'll commit themselves to a guy like that, because unfortunately with everybody having sex all over the place, that's a big part of people's lives. Sex, you know, in many people, it rules them. That's how they base themselves. Oh, sex, 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 sex. Yeah. So it kind of rules a lot of people's lives, men and women, that it rules their lives. So yeah. So I just wanted to just start that off there. I mean, am I wrong, Jim? What am I saying here?
I think for what you're saying from that standpoint is that women have those type of lists, but it's negotiable only for their favor. So how you see that they have more than one, that guy more than one woman. So that loyalty part just went out the window. And they don't value loyalty than against a big penis or good sex. So it's what the man can leverage from the woman that they will compromise, that they think that they want, or this is necessary. So obviously, you know, I'm not sure the guy probably had a good job too, was keeping his money.
Well, this particular guy didn't have a good job. And the guys that I know, that are like that, some of them do have good jobs, but they don't spend the money on the woman because they're spending the money on the wife. So I'm like, they're not spending money on, I mean, they may be spending some money, but they're not spending like the bulk of their paycheck on the woman. They're probably taking them out to eat, to the hotel or whatever. And I know, let's see, off the back, 5 guys. And I know for a fact that these 5 guys, and I'm not talking about the hamburger place either. I'm about to say that men, 5 men that they were all, no, not all were married, but 4 out of the 5 guys are married, but none of them spent any real money on women that they were sleeping with. And they were sleeping with lots of women, not just one, like 5, 10 at this around the same time. Right. So of course, you know, I think on another episode, we talked about this, about the guy who took his clothes off and he stood at the door, was like, so you just gonna let me walk out into a world and let somebody else have this? And of course, what did the woman do? She laughed it off, and the dude ended up having 2 kids outside of his marriage from the same woman that he was cheating on his wife with. So you know, let me turn it over to Donnie. I don't know how much has to share about this, but I'm going to give it a shot and see what he has from his perspective.
Yeah, sure. I've seen this situation before. Just to briefly touch upon it, it seems like a lot of people, or I guess if we're talking about women in this case, whoever, a lot of people will, if they can find some, actually, let me rephrase this. There are people out there of the opposite sex or whatever sex people are into that are aware of those people who have these ridiculously high standards. And what they're able to do oftentimes is kind of manipulate that by showing an image of what that person wants, or at least thinks they want. And they might have some of it, like you said, that guy had good sex or whatever. So because they're able to provide some of it, those people will fall for that lie, that illusion. And then just carry on a relationship based on a version of a person that never existed. You see that happen a lot. And just to give my perspective, my like own personal perspective, I think if I'm understanding my own generation correctly, it seems like What's more of the larger issue is that second part that I just mentioned. It seems like a lot of people in my generation, rather than have too many expectations, they oftentimes trick themselves into believing that someone who will never fill those expectations will. They'll get with the wrong person, place those expectations on someone who isn't warranting it. Of course, you still have the rest of the issues. It just seems like that's the larger problem that I've been noticing, at least.
Now, what would be some of those things that people would put on somebody that didn't have it?
Yeah.
What would the expectations be?
So here, I'll give you kind of an example of someone that I've known. This person, she had a boyfriend who was, for the most part, emotionally unavailable, but was at least able to provide physically, it seemed. So whenever, like, they did have sex, that would be cool or whatever. But whenever it came to having a discussion on something that made one of them upset, the guy in that situation was like, no show, basically. Had nothing to provide in that regard. But for me, I knew that guy for a couple of years. I don't think she took the time to get to know him well enough, because I definitely knew he's never had like an EQ that was that high. He's never been that compassionate towards people. So when she went to him to try to get like a good resolution, it's just not a thing he was. I don't know if it's a thing about capability or if it's desire, but there's just not. It's not there. I've seen that happen. Pushing the so as you said, that was one of the things you mentioned, right? Good communication.
Yes.
I've seen that happen a lot. There's these people who are clearly, they just like to go be players, or maybe they just like the thrill, emotional vampires, as we mentioned previously. And people will project what their ideal of a perfect person or perfect relationship is, despite that person, once again, not being able to, or not having the desire to be that person.
Right. So you inspired me to continue this specific topic, because I think this is a very huge one. Because I think what people have to understand when we talk about all these qualifications, a lot of times it's not like you said it perfectly, and I'm going to get to that. So it's not like a woman says, "Oh, hey, Jim, hi, you want to talk to me? So Jim, let me see. Okay, you look good. Do you have a car? Do you have money? How much money is in your account? Let me see your muscles. Take your penis out. Let's have sex right now. Can I go to your apartment? You know, they don't say that. So I want to be clear. That's not how the expectations work. The expectations are ingrained in thought. Some women will say specific things at the first point, but what happens is, and Donnie said this, he alluded to it perfectly, is they'll meet someone, be attracted to that person, and then they'll drop all the expectations for that person to meet on that person. So it was like, if let's say Halle Berry meets Jim today, and she's like, oh, he's cute. So he's like, oh, let's go out. Now Jim is dating Halle Berry, and now all of a sudden she's taking the ruler out. She's measuring how many orgasms she has, and she's checking out his place. And then all of a sudden, what happens? If you fall apart a lot, you get the curb, right? Because now you're not delivering anything. But a lot of times that BP, and I'm not talking about British Petroleum or whatever it's called, the name of that gas company, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about that big penis. So that big penis a lot of times causes complications for a lot of women, you know, because when they love that sex and they hadn't experienced it before then, it causes an attraction. Some fire in the background, but it causes an attraction that is hard, almost like an addiction. You know, when somebody's getting that good sex, a lot of times, I mean, I don't know how it is for a man, but for a woman, definitely, because I think there's a level of bonding through sex. I mean, women definitely have an emotional connection, more so than not. I know some that don't, but many women do have a bond through sex, through men. And that's why it's so dangerous now that everybody has sex in every relationship in this day and age, because in a time where sex was reserved for marriage, then you can go crazy all you want in the marriage. But now that everybody gets a test drive of the car before they buy it, now it's like everybody's compared to somebody else. And that causes a problem. So getting back to the topic, it's like I was saying that women will now start going, when they meet a guy and they're dating them or they're in a relationship, now they're checking off the boxes with this guy. And of course, we know not all of these things on the checklist. I'm pretty sure there are more, but these are the main ones I could think about. But what happens is now the relationship becomes, you may, by the time they start looking through these checklists, they may start crossing them out during this. Now you get into a relationship, your boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever, now they might start checking these things off their list. And if you don't have it, now it starts to become strained, because what happens when you don't have something? Somebody's looking at for someone who has it. So it's like, oh, he's 6 inches. Oh man, that ain't doing anything to me. So now you look at that guy over there. This guy may be a great guy. He may treat you right and all of that, but he may not satisfy you in the bed. And then what happens? He may not have money also. He may be making $50,000 a year and, live in a studio apartment or rent a room. If you're living in New York City, a lot of that goes on. A lot of guys who are not making very much money, and some women, they live in these rooms for rent. So at one point in my life, I lived in a room for rent, studio and stuff like that. But those are the not high wage earners. So now the guy's broke. Maybe if he doesn't have a car, doesn't have a big penis, not that great in bed, and so now all of a sudden, guess what happens? Now you're looking for the guy with the British Petroleum. So now your relationship is falling apart because they're looking for the expectations that they didn't get in that relationship. So, Jim, am I off base? What I'm saying? Is there any validity to that?
You're not off base, but the thing of the point of the matter is that if you have these expectations, you should check off your list before you even get into a relationship with them. Because now, and I'm going to be honest with you, with that type of idea, they will go to the next person because they're not getting one or two things from the original person, but they'll still hold on to the original person because they check off more on their checklist.
Right.
So to me, it's you can't, not every person's going to satisfy your whole entire needs or your checklist that you have, your expectations. No, like what you said, no one person's going to satisfy all this. So you have to compromise on some of the things that you may have on your expectations. But the problem is that people are compromising in the wrong way for their checklist. Is a big penis more important than communication? Obviously, for most women, it is. You're not prioritizing correctly on what you want, on what your expectations are.
Right.
So you get involved with the 6-inch penis. I mean, with the person who
the BP, the BP, British Petroleum.
Yeah, very well endowed.
Or petrol or whatever it's called.
Yeah, but he probably don't have a car, don't have no good job. So for that one thing, you have compromised maybe 4 or 5 other things. And is that really worth it? For some women, it is. And for some, I even say women. I mean, for men, it is too. Men will sacrifice or will stay with a woman because she looks good and she don't want another guy getting her. And she could be annoying, a pain, have 5 kids, stuff like that. And you will put up with her because she looks good. You feel like you can't do better. So for some people, it's a self-esteem issue. Some people, it's a pride issue also. And most people is being selfish, physically and emotionally. So you don't want another person getting it, so you want to keep it and hold on to it as long as you can, even though it's a bad fit.
Right.
And for me, I'm laughing because I've seen a lot of individuals go through all the time. I always ask them, "Is it worth it?" Yeah, well, and then 6 months later they break up. And I go to them, "Was it still worth it?" "Yeah, man, she was bad." And you went through HE double hockey sticks just to be with her, and then you end up calling it off anyway. It's how you prioritize your expectations.
Yeah. So Donnie, I know we're looking at your angle a little bit differently because I think the people that you come into contact with, they're just kind of getting, I mean, not to say that kids are not doing things at a younger age than when I was that age, but I know you're at the level here where now people are kind of figuring out what it is that they're interested in terms of the adult, the relationship is now more adult. So of course, that I know there's level of expectations, but if the expectations may not be as fine tuned as someone slightly older who has a little bit more experience. So how does this correlate to what you've seen or what you maybe even experienced in your travels?
I guess one of the big differences that you see uh between like these two age groups, there's not so much pressure for things like you have to have a car or you have to have your financial situation set up or whatever else. So I think as a result, because you have to put more value on all of those other things, I think that's why what I was saying, people look for the wrong people. I think that's why that's more present. Because at least when you're a little older and things should matter, like what someone's financial situation is or whatever else, you can those are big things that you can sit down and say, all right, I really need to focus on that, right? But when you're a little younger and those things aren't a factor, now it does come down to, the BP might be a little more higher up on the list because there's less things to list. And I think that's part of the reason why you see so many people unaware on how to handle that sort of situation. Uh, because we're still fine tuning, as you just said, it's harder to be able to find the things that really matter sometimes. I mean, hey, if you've been in a bunch of relationships, maybe you can do that. But I think a lot of people in my generation, there's a larger degree of the hookup culture or less serious relationships. That's become a bigger thing over the last couple decades, I'm sure. So yeah, that's really in my experience. It's just that there's less things on the list of priorities, so everything becomes muddled when there's not as much to consider.
Right. And I'm glad that you said that, because I think the genesis of life should definitely be looked at on how people end up. And unfortunately, this is a bad place that we began, where we started telling people not to take relationships seriously.
Yeah.
So when you tell young people, or the culture or the society tells you, have sex, I mean, I always, and people, I'm hearing more people say this, but I believe at some point in time that pedophilia will be legal, because the way that we're expressing to young people how they can decide sex for themselves. I mean, we tell underage people they can have abortions in this country. So if a child is 16 or 15, a 15-year-old can go to an abortion clinic and have an abortion clinic. As long as they have the means to pay for it, they can get it. So I think the way that we've told young society is having sex is okay. It's a part of life. But the problem with telling a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old to have sex is there's a responsibility that goes along with the consequences of sex, which is pregnancy. So if a young child gets pregnant, now that's a whole consequence that they have to live with for the rest of their lives. And I can't speak for all young girls or teenage girls or young women, but many young girls, teenagers, and women experience a trauma as a result of abortion. And that's the thing that now that travels with them for the rest of their life. So you already, now you have kids starting off, you have teenagers starting off as parents, sexually active. Then we're not even talking about sexually transmitted diseases and infections and stuff like that. So now they've already matured before they should have matured, because who's mature at 13 and 14? You know, 14-year-old kids and 15-year-old kids, they're not very mature. They can't make sound decisions no matter how mature you think they are. Because one, a child gets pregnant, a teenager gets pregnant, who's paying for the upkeep of the child? Can this 15-year-old child support herself or himself as a father? What is he doing at 15 years old? Getting a job at McDonald's? What is he going to do? So the way society has driven our youth, I mean, I would say by the time it came around, I was a little bit older, but the generations after, everybody's like, have sex, have sex. I mean, it's all on TV now. All of the things that they show young people doing now, it was unheard of when I was a kid. You lucky you saw a kiss on TV. That was the most you ever saw, was a teenage doing kissing. And most of the time that was like this. And that's what they did on TV when two teenagers gave a little kiss. But now the panties, all of that. I was watching some Netflix movie, and everything was about it, but the school. It was about a school, something like called Grand Army or something like that. It's about a school near Prospect Park, Brooklyn, called Grand Army High School or something like that. And everything was going on in this school but education. Everything. Like, when are they learning? They were talking about sex, girls, I forgot what she was doing, that she was in her, I think like a condom was stuck in her, and the friend was pulling the condom out, and like some crazy stuff going on. And I'm like, this is what we tell our young people to do: have sex, live like adults, even though they're not adults. That's why I believe pedophilia will be legalized, because we're already telling young people that they can do whatever they want. We're telling small children that they can decide their sex.
Yes, I don't know. Yes.
So how far off are we from people saying, well, if they can have sex at 14 or 13 years old, and they can decide their sex at 5 or 6 years old, why can't they choose to have a relationship with an adult? Why? So, we've hypersexualized the society, and sexuality drives the average person, both young and old. And so brings forth realistic expectations, because TV creates an expectation of relationships. And you hear a lot of these guys in the manosphere and people like Kevin Samuels and the MGTOW people talk about these things, that there's a society has Disney-fied relationships. So that's another problem that comes into play here, because you're driving expectations for what you see in the media. So you see, I don't know, some movie with Vanessa Hudgens being a princess, and everybody's a princessualized, and it's like, oh, we got this romantic guy's giving her a $20,000 ring, and he's writing poetry, and he's taking her on the private jet and all of that. And then it's like, oh, I need a guy with a private jet, and it doesn't quite happen. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up, and kind of round out to the guys after that, because Jim, you kind of touched on the guys. So I kind of wanted to move over to guys' expectation. I mean, they're pretty much all the same. And it's similar to the guys too. It's very similar. The difference with guys, though, most of the initial expectations are most certainly on a physical level. And it's in the same circumstances as men, but it usually rears its head after sex is involved. Mm-hmm. So the qualification that men have for women are definitely looks, body, nice figure, and that's usually where it starts, right? So it's the opening qualifications for women are usually minimal. They have to look pleasant. So that's really where it starts off. But the problem with men is a lot of times men are short-sighted in the rest of the important qualities that a woman should possess, or a young woman. And then by the time they realize they should have had some other expectations, now they're stressed out because they're like, this person takes my money, or this person cheats, or this person has a lot of guy friends, this person parties all the time, or this and that. So all of the inequalities, expectations, both fair and unfair, usually come after the fact, when they already found the person physically, like, oh yeah, I like that person, and then they jump. And that depends on the guy's ability to get a woman, because it's not as simple for young men and men who are not as attractive as a guy like a Shamar Moore or somebody like that, or like a Morris Chestnut or some guy, or whoever a younger guy would be like that. I don't even know these days. Pop Smoke, I guess, before he was killed, or somebody like that. So what happens is, the lesser looking guys, they gotta pretty much grin and bear it, because they're going to pretty much take what they can get. Those are the guys who suffer the most, because they can't really choose. The run of the mill guys can't really choose like the other guys. Every once in a while, they may get lucky and find someone with the physical attributes, but usually the run of the mill guy, Joe Blow, he's choosing from a different pick of women. So I guess we can continue on to there. So Jim, am I off base there? Does that sound something that makes sense?
Makes perfect sense. I'm gonna be honest with you. The older men get, um, if you get a better looking woman, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. A woman still relying on her looks as she gets older means that they haven't adapted, or they have um, extra stuff with them, and men would just dismiss it, and realize that the woman might have something else in mind on why they chose you. It's like we're easily fooled, like what you said, physically, especially if she has a big behind, nice breasts, good body, smell good. But that allure sometimes cover up their nasty attitude, the way they think, their entitlement behavior, things like that, and the ability to get another man quickly, even though it's not the type of man that they want themselves, but they use as leverage. They're all gonna go get another man. All those for men, it preys on their fear. And ways is the less attractive you are for a man, the less confident or the less assurance that you feel in a relationship, and you overcompensate. So you'll do more and get less out of a relationship. That's one of them. For men, it's hard. I won't say it's hard, but it's the less attractive you look. You don't get your pick of the litter. But men are good at accepting their options, or their limited options, than women. Men are more, in that regards, are more compromising in those type of situations. Most men are self-aware of the positions that they're um, in the dating market, and they play their field accordingly. They can, this guy may, not look good, but he further enhances his other attributes to make him look more attractive to other women, even women that are probably, two levels above him. And that adaptability, it hurts them, but also harms, it helps them, but also harms at the same time, because, I always say the same way you got a person is probably the same way you can lose them. So if you took, a man takes a woman, takes a man from their wife, you're gonna lose them the same way to another woman. Or, if a man gets a girl from another guy, you might lose her too. But is that type of excuse me, is that type of behavior, that type of self-esteem, that type of all that plays factors into play on how men would get into relationships. But I do give them credit for knowing their value and playing their positions well to maximize their value as well. It's something that can be beneficial if they learn how to evolve that type of thinking. So, you get a woman, you attract her look, stuff like that. So where do you go from there? For some men, it's the thrill, the hunt of having sex. After sex, what do you do? And most men don't think beyond that. Most men think, oh, well, I want to get her, I'm going to bag her, stuff like that. You do things to keep her happy. You go shopping, drive around, go on vacation, stuff like that. But when that novelty wears off, what do you want to do afterwards? Most men, unfortunately, will probably try to go on to the next woman and start the process over again. It's something that is a problem, because for men, the sex part is really the end result of what they want, and then afterwards it's like, okay, they start analyzing the woman afterwards. So they look at her habits, her thinking, things like that. And then they'll see if they want to get out of a relationship or not, or if it's not worth it, or if another woman fancies them and they haven't had that conquest yet, they'll go to the next woman. And I give, some men credit, they do play that role very well. It's just a temporary thing, and they just bounce around and, go to the next woman. Once they have sex, go to the next one. Once they have sex, go to the next woman. Some of them really do want, right, the woman, and they want to stay in a relationship. And they will try their hardest afterwards to keep the relationship interesting. But for men, it's after the sex is, what else is there? And I think beyond that, that most men have to think about that once they do get what they're after originally, what they want to do when they get their so-called, they climb their mountain, or climb Mount Everest and plant their flag.
Yeah, that is the biggest complication that we have in relationships, is because when men kind of jump into sex before anything, then after the sex happens, they then take the time to see what other characteristics the person that they're with had, so that they can continue this relationship on a positive journey where it grows, the relationship improves, and they actually have a future together. Now they start beginning after the sex. Now they start getting to see all the flaws. And then they're like, well, this person is a terrible communicator, doesn't cook, doesn't clean, anything, whatever whatever their flaws they're looking to point out, now they exist. All right, Donnie. So again, you of course have a fresher outlook than we do. So how does this correlate to anything that you have seen or experienced?
Yeah, here's my experience with this. This is a thing, of course, we shuffled over to men, and this is more, I've seen this more so in men, but of course this applies the other way too. A lot of the times when you place expectations, depending on what it is, it can become clear to the other person what you came in looking for. And when I say this, what I mean is, when a guy goes in and all they initially looked for was good looks, the other person, the girl or whoever, I guess, but they can mostly tell that's what they're into, because it'll usually take the form of, oh, maybe all you do is compliment them about how pretty or cute they are on a certain day or whatever, or you're just always touching up on them, whatever the case is. So now they know in their head that's all they need to get whatever out of this relationship. So if you've now set it up that way, what reason does the other person have to ever have anything else to offer? Like, once you've already said it where that was enough for you, even though for sure, like that's maybe that's messed up, but you said it that way, so there's no reason for a change to happen. I think if you
That's
go
a good
into
point, by the way. I didn't
yeah,
mean to interrupt you. Good point.
yeah,
Go ahead.
thank you. It's a situation where it's like, actually, since you guys bring up Kevin Samuels a lot, while I won't go into a whole like quotation or anything like that, what I've noticed off of his videos is he's often harsh to the person, to the person who's calling in. But I do think it's a result of this. I think it's because they're the person who he can help, if you get what I mean. It's like,
Yes.
if you're having an issue with someone in a relationship, sure, maybe they should be doing these things to meet these expectations, But if you came in and you weren't sure that they had that potential in them, you're the only one who you can fix. And at that point, you just have to make sure you know who you're getting into a relationship with. Because as you said, a lot of men, when they after they have the sex and they do that investigation that they never did the first time, then they realize maybe this wasn't the situation I wanted to get into. And a lot of the time, what you see is you'll see people, maybe they took too long to do that. Maybe the glamour wore off far too late.
Yes.
And now they don't know how to leave that, or maybe they feel guilty, or maybe it took so long that now there's a kid involved or something else. And because they're kept in by whatever that thing is, they will search for it elsewhere, but while they're still in that relationship. And even if that person like didn't do everything you wanted them to do or did you wrong or whatever, you're now putting yourself as objectively the one who's wrong now, because now you let yourself like spiral into in a situation that you could have avoided.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point. It's, I wanted to say that the investigation after the fact, that is a big problem. And the guilt, when you talked about the guilt in terms of some guilt, or sometimes, like you said, a child is involved, those are definitely a lot of factors when people don't leave the situation when they should have. And sometimes the kid happens right away.
Yeah.
I've seen situations where it's like they got into a relationship and they started having sex, and maybe a month or a couple of months into this, now there's a baby involved. And then it's like they kind of stay for that purpose. Well, So what I wanted to talk about also is, because we talked about all these points here, and I'm looking at the time and I don't want to run out of time in this discussion. So what I wanted to talk about is some of the issues why these things happen. Why do we end up sabotaging ourselves when it comes to our relationship opportunities? And I wanted to say the biggest problem that we're having, and I'm going to say this causes trouble in all aspects of relationships, is socializing. We have a problem where we struggle with our social culture between men and women, especially in specific communities, especially communities of color. We have a hard time talking to the right people. Let's just put it that way. So you'll hear a lot of women call on Kevin Samuel's show, and they'll talk about they can't find the man, right? And the men that they're looking for are not approaching them. And so there's a problem, because men and women they're not socializing with each other on a general level. So you can see a woman in a room and they'll ignore the man. Now they'll even ignore the man that they want. And that's a problem. So you can't say you want something, but now you're asking someone to have all these expectations, many or some or all of them that we talked about. And then this guy has to approach you and be like, hey, by the way, would you like to go out? Can I have your phone number? Excuse me, you have to make yourself available for someone to approach you. And how does one do that? Well, socializing. It won't kill you to have a conversation with a man, ask something generic where you can get a response or a conversation from that person. A lot of other women do it. When you see certain women, I'll give a perfect example. These old women out here that's senior citizens, they understand the game. I've had an 80-year-old woman to come kick game to me, and straight up, how did she do it? She approached me. Now, I wasn't going to date an 80-year-old woman, but just the mere fact that she understood how do you get a man is you engage. So you gotta that's what you call shooting your shot. Do you want a shark? Is that what you want? A shark? Because if you're looking for a shark to approach you, that's not going to end well. And if you get in a situation like that, somebody who's just looking to pursue women all the time, you're going to have a dude that's going to give you headaches down the road, because sharks are the only one that chase after prey, right? So there's got to be some level of interest. You think that the essence of a man is confidence to approach you, but some guys don't want to waste their time. So if you're ignoring someone, or if you're not giving off the energy that you're interested in this conversation with this person to get your information to establish a relationship, then the only people that you're going to meet are the lions that are looking for the gazelles and the animals that they can hunt down, so that's the issue. You gotta be available. Donnie says something about emotionally available. You gotta be socially available, because if you're not socially available to men in general, so you can kind of meet people, then all you're gonna meet is the guy that's gonna hunt you down and get whatever he wants from you. Because those are the only guys that have nothing to lose. And they've, I had my older brother. He was like that. He was, he knew, oh, I'm gonna just chase this woman down, and then I know if I can get her talking, I'll have a good shot. And that's what these street dudes do. A lot of times, we hear when women get upset that men call women bees when they won't talk to them, but that's a ploy. A lot of women don't know. A lot of times these street guys know that the woman will stop, and they may be upset and offended, but if they get the chance to shoot their shot at that moment, they will then confront the woman with that predator aggression to say, well, it got you to stop, right? Because I tried to talk to you and you wouldn't stop. So it's a game. So yeah, these guys, they do it for a reason. They're not doing it because they want to call you that. They want to get a reaction to you so you can confront them and they can shoot their shot with you at that point. So, Jim, am I wrong? Did I say anything off base there?
Wrong. I've seen that 100 times, and women 95% of the time to 99% of the time fall for it. You're definitely right. Predators will do that. Will make something outlandish, something. They don't believe it the majority of the time, but they need for you to acknowledge them. They need the acknowledgement. They need to know that, you walk by them and you don't say anything. That's why they said that, because they're like, yo, you saw me walk by, you saw me, and that's how they get their way in.
And what about the socializing?
The socializing, that part is definitely true, and I'll tell you why. I was at a friend's wedding years ago, and I was, me, I'm always sitting down in the corner, and a girl asked me to dance. She says, "Oh, well, you want to dance?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I dance horribly, but you know what? Though she appreciates the fact that I still dance with her. And then we were conversing at the table I was sitting at for at least 2 hours, just talking about general things. She engaged a conversation, and she had, certain topics and things like that based upon who I was with, which side of the person, groom or bride, which side of the groom or bride I was with, family background, things like that, and all the friends associated with that. And from that, she was able to dissect the conversation very well. She had a very good pace, and obviously had experience with this. But she engaged me, and it became a very good piece, and it shows that she had topics that weren't ranging from the normal crap that you'll talk with people. She kept it engaging. And she was her attitude was very pleasant, warm. Her energy was just, we could go back and forth. And most women don't give off that energy. That's why most men don't avoid them. Like, you look at us like, what do you want? You're not inviting. You're just like, I know I look good. What do you want? You're not the person I want. Next. And that's most men get from women, from that, Women know they look good. They say, "Oh, we don't dress up for no man, please." If you're going to a bar, to a restaurant, or you're going to an event, you want to outshine. A, you're trying to outshine all the women there, and B, you're trying to get attention. And most women don't know how to engage men because, let's be honest, most of them don't want to find out about men. They don't want to find out about men. They just think, mostly what men take is just sex, just the appeal. And they don't know, like what I said with men, they climb the Mount Everest, but how do they keep it engaged? They don't know how to keep them engaged at all afterwards. The conversation is short. It's basically, Instagram, Facebook, music, TV, that's it. you know, for short basis of conversation. And like what you said, individuals don't have social skills, how to talk, when to talk, tone, correct English, correct English language. Not everybody speaks slang. That type of communication you have to pick up on, and how to pick up on social cues. Most individuals don't know social cues at all.
Right.
And they just think, it's just from their four corners of the block. That's why I always say, people, when you're growing up, you have to leave your four corners of your block. There's a whole world out there for you to see and to examine and to take in. And if you don't do that, you're out of your depth when you go to these other different places and you feel uncomfortable. You have to know your surroundings, and the best way to do that is to converse with people. Find out what they're about, find out why they're there, what's going on, things like that. And that's how you start to build a relationship, and that's how you gauge people in seeing oh, is there a good fit? If it's not a good fit, you feel comfortable, uncomfortable. And for me, it has been hard to approach women because it's off the bat, you're not my type. Okay, that's fine. Can I start a conversation though? And
Right.
when they realize it's just all about conversation, they was like, oh, well, I didn't expect. I said, well, you didn't give me a chance. Your expectations were. Most men like to converse, to be honest with you. They do.
That's definitely true.
Most men do like to talk. And you know what? You're not giving them a chance because, you think, oh, you're trying to holler at me. You're trying to holler. Every time no, not trying to holler. We are here. We're both here. Let's just talk because I'm bored.
That happened to me. It's funny that you say that, because that happened to me and I wasn't even interested in the woman. I was just being friendly. And then she says something to me. She's like, oh, I just want to let you know that, I just started working here and not too long ago. And, I don't want to get into relationships or try to date somebody that I'm working with. And I had to explain to her, I said, listen, not to be offensive. Yeah, I'm not your type and you are definitely not my type. I'm not interested in that. And that's 100% true. Sometimes you just want to be friendly and talk to people. Not everybody that approaches you is necessarily talking to you because they want something romantically or sexually from you. And like I said, she wasn't my type at all, but you see someone all the time, you approach them. Why should I just, if I'm going to see you every day, if I'm going to see you, or if I have to see you or interact with you, why would I not be friendly? So it's just the mere fact that you sometimes got to let people reveal themselves to you before you can respond to them. Don't respond to people that you're not sure what they're even approaching you for. So, if you don't know what it is, I mean, it'll be one thing, for example, if I was standing out on the sidewalk with an iPad and I was like, hey, could I talk to you? That somebody's trying to get money from you. But I wasn't doing that. It was just a regular conversation. So, Donnie, I know, like I said, I don't know how close your perspective into what we're talking about is, because of course, some of these things happen over time. I'm sure there's some level of similarity that you may have knowledge of and experience. So how does this factor into, I guess, the younger generation in terms of socializing and being able to, young men and women meeting each other?
I think this, and this may, I'm going to preface this like this may be something as a result of my own personal preference. So take it with a grain of salt. But I personally feel like going back to this social availability, and this might be a little more literal than you were going for with it, but I think a large problem that sabotages a lot of relationships with people around my age is that so they're romantically available to the people they're trying to date, but they're not socially available, in the sense that people, I see a lot of people don't even bother to be friends with the people they date first at all. Like how are you going to know you even can stick around, like even talk to this person, like be on the train or bus or whatever, and not feel like it's an awkward taxing silence or whatever. I see a lot of people these days who they will refuse to date people who they're friends with as a result of you're too much like a sibling or this and that. But they have no basis for their relationship, which means they don't even know who they're dating, right? So when they come to this conclusion, like, oh my God, you're not doing this and that, well, you didn't know them in the first place, and which is the problem.
Right.
I've seen a lot of this, a lot of this happening, and I do think if you're gonna date someone, you don't have to be the best as a friends with every single person you date, but you got to at least understand who they are. So that's why in this case, when I'm saying social availability, like you just got to be willing to actually interact with someone in a way that isn't necessarily romantic. Like if all your interactions are just romantic, just making out, just going on dates, only that's all you have, that'll feel great. It feels wonderful. That's like that honeymoon phase type thing. But if you don't have like a solid relationship, like platonically, if you don't have a friendship to fall back on, your relationship isn't going to go anywhere, because it's just going to feel like you see this trope a lot where it's like, oh, you're my girlfriend, not my friend, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How are you supposed to be sharing everything with this person if you're older, you're getting married, you're sharing finances, you're sharing a house? How are you supposed to do that and you don't even like the person?
Right.
I think that's a big problem that people kind of just skip over, because they separate friendships and relationships so far.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that happens quite often. And I think again that goes back to having the ability to be social with people, to build foundations and bonds. You know, if you meet people with your hormones, eventually hormones increase and decrease over time, you know, especially with the inception of a relationship. So you may be sexually attracted to someone today, and then you get with that person and you have sex and you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it as much, and now you like somebody else. Now is a lot of times, if you didn't build a foundation with a person, you just jump to that next attraction. And I've seen it happen so many times where people do not know how to create foundations with other people when they meet them, and then something happens and then they jump ship like it was the Titanic. But that's not healthy, because what happens is you create this persona that now you project to other people. And then when people start doing it in return because you're projecting that to them, then you start to not like it. And then you find your own self in that situation where people are manipulating you. And that's a big problem, because now you get the nice, pretty, rich young lady. They meet the guy and they didn't build the foundation, and then they want to know why this guy is a monster. But in the interim, because you built everything on the immediate attraction, you quit your job, you move halfway around the world, and now you're depending on this person that you sort of ran away with to create this fantasy land relationship with you. And then it doesn't happen, because now you have to deal with the real guy. You have to deal with, you pull back the layer of the apartment you're living in, the car that this guy's driving, and now you have to deal with the essence of who this man really is. And now you find out, boom, you're in this trouble that you don't want to be in all of a sudden. And not a beautiful sight. Jim, what do you say about that?
I definitely agree with you. I have a friend who I used to work with at my job, and she was let go, and she has a boyfriend that she met online during the pandemic, and now that she's not working, she spends most of her time with him, and she's not doing anything for herself. And she's living in a phase because she's getting her needs fulfilled at the moment, but it's might not, to me, might not last long because she's not doing her needs that long term. And I know her boyfriend. I never met him. I don't know him, but men do get keen senses to these things with attachments and things like that, especially for the wrong reasons. And I think that if she's not careful, the guy might leave her just for the fact that she is relying upon him to fulfill a need that she cannot fulfill herself, or should be trying to fulfill herself at the same time as well. And it's sad, it most women do that when things happen, especially when in situations and when things happen to them in their lives. They run to, a boyfriend, something like, to have that need fulfilled, but they don't realize that A, it's temporary, and B, they have to have the fulfillment themselves that they're missing for them to be truly satisfied. And you cannot expect that from another person sometimes. Sometimes you can't really expect it from another person. You have to do it within yourself. And when they put that upon the partner, it's not fair. It's very disingenuous at best. They are there to help you and to provide temporary relief until you be able to bring yourself back up. They can help you come back up, but they cannot do it for you. Like I said, you keep carrying a person on your back, their back gonna go out eventually. You're gonna have to stand on your own 2 feet. You're not Jesus. This is not for the footprints poem. This is not gonna happen. You need to stand up on your 2 feet eventually. And that's the mistake that most people make when you say that some people say they're not emotionally available, and that's what they mean. It's not, they're not there to fulfill all their emotional needs. And for a partner, that's really not possible. You know yourself better than anyone. They'll know you just as well too, and they can help prop you up just for a limited time though. But at the point, you're gonna have to stand up your own 2 feet and walk.
Yeah, I agree with that. And before we finish out over here, Donnie, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to the current discussion that we're having.
Yeah, actually, both of you have briefly touched upon like this idea of, or at least Jim did, this idea of like relying on someone to like make your life, whatever, right? When you put all of your weight behind someone else to just make everything this fantasy world, like you had mentioned that about that person who moved across the, whichever one of you mentioned it,
I did that.
yeah, that was you. Okay, cool. um when you have that much reliance on someone, just as you said, Jim, very good chance that they'll leave. um I've seen this a bunch of times. Just a note that I wanted to drop in before we wrapped up was that relationships, you hear people say like it's a 50-50 situation, which is like a stupid way to look at it. Because once you start looking at it like that, you're discounting the fact that relationships are 100-100. You put in your 100% effort, and that's half of the
Yes.
relationship right there.
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't understand that. So if you're relying on someone else to make life better, make your paradise for you, they could go find someone who's willing to work together to do that. I just wanted to throw that in there. I know it might be a small departure, but I just want to throw that in there real quick.
No, you know what? That's a actual exponent to this conversation, because that you're 100% right. It isn't really 50-50. I mean, if we want to be honest, it is 50-50, because that's what a lot of people do end up contributing. They don't
Yeah.
give 100%. And like you said, if you gave 100% and the other person gave 100%, you should be great. You should be, because that means you're giving your all. And I think the issue is people do live up to the mantra 50-50. And also you have to look at your circumstance. A lot of times we talk about relationships, and a lot of times people go with the expectation, this guy, he has to pay all the bills, or he has to do this, so so you're looking for someone to take care of everything, but you got to also have the expectation, what are you gonna take care of when he's taking care of everything? He's doing the repairs in the house, he's paying the bills, now you want him to be an involved parent if you have kids. You want him to do all of these things, you want him to be confident, and what are you going to offer him when you're asking for those things? And that's the reality. And if a person doesn't have those things to offer, does that mean the person is useless? Because if you have somebody now that can fix up your house, let's say, for example, he can fix everything around the house, that's money right there. Because when you have a sewer line clogged in your house, that's $300 right there to get that cleaned up. You have a door that's broken that needs to be fixed, that's money. You have somebody who can Just do jobs around the home that if you didn't have that person in the house that you'd have to pay for, that's money right there. But those are discounted things. You can't just look at somebody and say, well, I make 150,000, he makes 50,000, he's useless because he's not paying all the bills. But let's be honest, you got to be real about what it is that you're paying and what it is that he's paying. So is he just paying for everything in the house, or is he helping you pay what's in the house while you're paying off your college debt? Because that happens too. A lot of people they bring money into the discussion, and then but he's paying. He may be $50,000, but he may have no debt, and you may be 150, and you may be 200,000 in debt.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're criticizing him because you're saying he's not bringing money, but in the real world, you actually not bringing the money because you're making less because you have to pay all that money off. So is that fair? Is it someone to say, let's say a guy who's making 150,000 now, he says, I want you to equally contribute. And you're like, oh, I can't contribute because I got to pay my loan. And then he says, well, bye, because I'm looking for 50-50 split. I'm looking for an equal share here. And because you can't contribute equally, because I'm not going to pay for everything, but I'll pay for half, you pay for half. What's the purpose of you working if I'm going to pay for everything and you're going to make? So the expectations have to be realistic, and they have to be geared towards reality. They have to be geared towards reality and fairness, because if they're not, it can easily be pointed against you for something that you may not be doing. And it happens all the time. Women gain weight, guys like, well, you gain weight. I'm not satisfied by you anymore. You gain weight, or you don't cook, or you can't cook, or whatever. You don't do the laundry, or you stink, or whatever. So you got to know, when you bring expectations and they're unrealistic, you're just opening yourself to people to bring unrealistic expectations against you. And it just happens so often. And people will do it when you're innocent. Imagine when you're guilty, how that flies back in your face. So I wanted to kind of just close it down, because I think this is pretty much where we're going to leave it for now. And I'll let Jim say something, and Donnie, and then we'll just kind of end it right there.
Ooh,
You're okay, there you go.
I hope people take away something from this. Don't have outlandish expectations. Be realistic with what you're looking for and what the other person can provide. It's prioritize also what you want with your expectations as well, and make sure that the priority that you're looking for is not too superficial, but also something that can help you emotionally, mentally, physically, and physically as well. Be good to each other. Give everyone an equal opportunity. Try to look past certain layers if you can, and hopefully that you'll find someone that you're not gonna miss out on.
That's perfect, Donnie.
I guess I'd say, for everyone listening, just don't waste any of your life or effort or emotions on something you don't know you can rely on. Just make sure whatever it is you do, friendships, relationships, a job, whatever it is, just make sure you know for sure that the foundation under it is solid and it will hold you up.
And with that, I'll thank everyone for tuning in. This is Jonathan St. James, along with Jim and Donnie St. James. We bid you adieu until next time.
Take care.